Up next, the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show with Snowden Bishop. Now that doctors and patients have discovered the many benefits of hemp-derived CBD, Alpine Miracle's nano-emulsion CBD formula is one of the most bioavailable on the market today. It's 100% THC-free, so you can order it online anywhere in the U.S. Order yours today at alpinemiracle.com. Scientists are just beginning to understand its essential role in maintaining optimal health. Get yours today. Use the code REPORTER and receive 10% off. Don't wait. Get it now at alpinemiracle.com.
You're busy, running around from work to kids to evening events. Healthcare shouldn't be adding to your daily running around. Simplify your healthcare with Healthterra. For only $15 per month per individual or $18 per month per family with up to 9 kids, by the way, you can eliminate doctor office visits with 24/7 access to doctors via phone, video, or the mobile app. Not only do you get prescriptions filled over the phone, but save up to 85% on those prescriptions. This is a supplemental plan and not insurance. Healthcare made easy. Healthterra.com.
Time for the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show with Snowden Bishop. Listen in as Snowden interviews cannabis industry pioneers, marijuana experts, policymakers, medical practitioners, patients, and other amazing individuals with compelling stories to share. It all happens right now. Here's the Cannabis Reporter, Snowden Bishop.
Hi, and welcome back to the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show. I'm Snowden Bishop, your host, and happy to be here. Today, I received news that the University of California in San Diego received a $4.7 million grant to research the efficacy of cannabis for treating autism. If you were with us a year ago, you may have caught my interview with autism specialist Christian Bogner, who was on the show with Brandy Williams, a mother of a severely disabled child who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. They talked about their success with cannabis for treating autism, but also made it clear that there haven't been very many studies actually proving scientifically that cannabis can help. With Autism Awareness Month in full swing right now, I just wanted to revisit the subject. 1 out of every 68 children are diagnosed with autism each year. And if you add to that number the children who are diagnosed with ADHD or autism-related illnesses, that number is more like 1 out of every 6. While the causes of autism are not fully understood, a number of abnormalities have been identified by scientists, such as lower levels of available serotonin, a brain chemical associated with mood regulation, and imbalance between excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters, and irregular organization of brain networks. CBD has a number of effects on the central nervous system which may be relevant to autism, including correcting imbalances and neurotransmitters and enhancing the activity of the endocannabinoid system, which modulates a lot of these neurological impulses, mood, memory, and a variety of other cognitive processes. So why is CBD or cannabis not a commonly recommended medicine for treating autism? It's a question that boggles my mind. Most people that I speak with will tell you it's because there's not any US-based scientific proof. And with the news that I got today, that might be changing. And I can really hope that that will happen and really affect change. But meanwhile, it's mothers who have the courage to come out and speak about cannabis that are at the helm of raising awareness and bringing the attention to the scientific community to facilitate this research. Today, I am really delighted to introduce you to a mom who has been advocating for cannabis at a legislative level and a community level and dealing with it with her own child. But before I introduce her, Dr. Brian Donner has our Medical Marijuana Minute. What do you have for us today?
Thank you, Snowden. Autism is a very important topic in our country today, and I'm happy to speak about this briefly. Autism is a complex syndrome with a wide spectrum of severity, from barely noticeable attention deficits and learning disabilities to extreme catatonia and self-injurious behavior. For families, learning a child is autistic is often heartbreaking, and answers are often difficult to find. What makes it more devastating is the uncertainty that comes with the pharmacological medications that are used to treat this condition, as they can often cause debilitating side effects and have a narrow therapeutic window. Scientists and researchers have yet to definitively confirm the exact causes, although there are a number of theories being explored. Whatever the cause, the fact remains that, to date, there are no known cures for autism, and our current treatments are marginal at best. In the recent years, however, we have seen some compelling testimonials from parents who have chosen to forego traditional pharmaceutical treatment and use medical cannabis as an alternative. For some physicians and healthcare providers, abandoning conventional medical protocol takes a leap of faith, particularly since we lack the clinical studies proving the efficacy of treating autism with medical marijuana. But with mounting anecdotal evidence, testimony from parents who swear it helps their children, and further clinical research in the pipeline, medical cannabis is absolutely an option that should be explored as a treatment for autism. I'm Dr. Brian Donner for the Cannabis Reporter. I'll be back again next week with another Medical Marijuana Minute. Back to you, Snowden.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donner. Look forward to hearing from you again next week. So let's get started.
Meiko Perez came public with her use of cannabis with her son in 2009. And since then, she's really been an inspiration to families who are looking to explore cannabis as a holistic treatment option for their children who suffer with autism. Meiko, I'm really delighted to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
So I initially saw you on a video that is airing now on 420 TV, and you were talking about your experiences. Tell me a little bit about that. It was one episode basically devoted to you.
Yeah, actually, I was actually one of a few parents that went public in 2009. And, 11 years later, to see something that, I feel like I've helped open the doors to actually now getting the research. I sat there on the Good Morning America show, and that's exactly what I asked for now 11 years later. And we are definitely on our way. Initially, when I placed my son on cannabis, it was to help with his anorexia and malnutrition. He was 42 pounds. He was 9 years old. And, everyone was watching me watch him pass away. It was definitely, not a good time as being a single mother, trying to work and to take care of her child at the same time. And so I've been a legal secretary for over 15 years. And so my son just ended up being my biggest case. So for whatever reason, I was already prepared for this fight a long time ago. And the further, every time I said I wanted to, I can't believe I'm in the legal industry and I'm talking about cannabis and, coming from not being ever a consumer, I had a lot of other people that were coming to me saying, not only thank you, but you're doing this for all the right reasons. And so I've never lost sight of that. And I continue to advocate with families, and you may hear Joey in the background because I'm home right now. I continue to advocate on a state level and internationally now with helping families and physicians with this unconventional, and now, I could call it traditional treatment option for children on the spectrum. So grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, when you consider that so many parents are having success using cannabis, and when you consider that cannabis was like a number one treatment for most neurological conditions before prohibition, to say that it's traditional at this point, I imagine that it will become that as time goes on.
It's on its way. I mean, I am in my office 3 days a week, and those 3 days, I feel like I've spoken with the entire world. It starts from 5 a.m. to 5 a.m. and it could be from Wisconsin to South Africa to Denmark to California. I actually had a family last week come into my office from Venezuela. So I do know that this is starting to become the preferred treatment option, but in most states that even have legalization, the state child protective service laws have not caught up to this now treatment option. So it's I do think that we still have some work to do. And I will continue to remain an international autism advocate for cannabis therapies until my job is done.
When you started this in 2009, hearing you speak about it, I mean, you really have been doing so much outreach. But how much pushback did you get in 2009? I mean, even though you're in California and they already
Right.
had an established medical marijuana law.
It's really hard for me to gauge that simply because whatever anyone said, it really, kind of fell by the wayside. There was no way that I had a medical team behind me and I had my legal counsel. So there was nothing to stop me. It's funny, when you have a child that is given 6 months to live, you fight different, you advocate different, there's nothing, you don't fear anything because you've already are enduring the worst, and that's possibly losing your child. I was very close. And in late, Joey was doing very well with cannabis therapies, and we were starting to see some physical regression that had nothing to do with his behavior, had nothing to do with the cannabis. He was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is a terminal muscular dystrophy. So, in 2011, I had to reinvent, my advocacy all over again, simply to address, I kind of felt like I had the golden child. Here I am, I have a child with 2 misunderstood diagnoses and no cures. So, I definitely, even when I said I'm done and I quit and I want to get out, there was no way that I could, because now I started, now I'm fighting for palliative and end of life care, as well as autism as well. So it's been quite a journey. But, if you're a family, if you're legal counsel, calling to help with family law until the laws, catch up, I'm available. I do free consults from the dispensary that I work from. I am the educational director for From the Earth Dispensary in Orange County, California. And I am in my office, and it's when the office was first built, they said, why do you have all of these toys and these, because it was hard for a dispensary to even fathom that, families would be bringing their children into my office. And I said, no, just watch, I said, we built this information and resource center that has no door into the dispensary for one reason, and that is to support the community that I come from first. So, I don't think that I will ever, stop advocating for cannabis therapies and making sure that, the parents are protected and they have a safe access into a dispensary, whether it's From the Earth or a dispensary in their local community. I want to be instrumental, and I think I am instrumental in making sure that these parents get a great starting point and just really get the real information that they need to help navigate this until Child Protective Service laws catch up, which I'm working on.
Oh, yeah. And it'll take some time, obviously, but,
It is going to take some time, but I mean, there's not an hour that doesn't go by that you have social services that is still not on board. You figure, if we get to the point to where we need cannabis, then we are going through hell at home. If you get to the point to where you need cannabis, we are dealing. So it's the unimaginable to have a knock at your door and it's Child Protective Services, and they're deeming you as an unfit parent, even when you live in a state where there's legalization. So it's still happening, where I'm currently working with a lot of physicians, so they can be instrumental in stepping in and saying, no, this is what I've, this routine, this child is under my care. I'm following this child while this child is on cannabis therapies. And that's what's really going to help is having the physicians on board.
Yeah, and last year I interviewed a woman who lived in Utah, and she was the mother of a severely disabled child who had a lot of congenital problems when she was born. She learned about cannabis through a friend and took her daughter to Colorado where she could get legal access. Her daughter was healing remarkably well with CBD and some whole plant therapy. But when she brought her back, she was still giving her CBD, but she got a knock at the door from Child Services. And this is in Utah. And she literally had to become a cannabis refugee, and she moved to Oregon. Yeah. But so many families are finding that is the case.
Oh, yeah. There's times where I'm sending letters to governors and saying, your constituents are leaving your state because you guys are not providing any resources for families with children diagnosed with autism. And I know in California, we have regional centers who now our children are numbers. The resources that are here for ABA services and for all of that is federally funded, state and federally funded. And so, it's really, it's like a catch-22. We want to do this, and then when it happens, we want to talk about it because it's phenomenal, but we can't. As many places and many interviews and the Fox channel and Univision and Telemundo and ABC, I have a full catalog, but you will never find cannabis on any medical report from my son.
Yeah, it's tragic, isn't it? And even here in the state of Arizona, autism is not on the list of approved conditions for a medical cannabis card.
But it's well on its way. I know that I'm working in a couple of states right now that are adding it to their list of symptoms. I think it's important to have the word autism on the list of symptoms, but I also know that autism falls under at least about 35 symptoms. Yeah. Every year the criteria changes, and I think that's a problem too. Yeah, it changes to affect how much money is being allocated toward our services. So, no child is alike. But, there are some pretty, the criteria should have at least, 10 or 15 things that, that fall under autism, under that umbrella. And then they need to fix this umbrella because this umbrella is huge. This umbrella is,
it really
there's
is.
So many levels to autism. And I know it, I feel the same pain, with the folks who are, changing the criteria, and they can't figure it out. But we can't figure it out either. But what we can, what we do know is that what is working for us should be a priority, and making sure that, we're protected.
I agree with you on that one. And yeah, it's all of the qualifying conditions that are listed, any given autism child would fall under, like, for instance,
like
spasticity or pain or, anxiety.
You open up the medical dictionary, and on every page there's an autism symptom. You're like, oh, that's an autism symptom. That is not. So I get it. But I think right now there's a lot of politics that are involved. It has to do with, the money being allocated to the right places and the right agencies. But I do think, with the statistic right now that's it seems like it rises, 50 to 100% every week with new diagnosis. It's very difficult to be approved for most of these programs and stay approved. So when it comes to, helping with behavior and helping with just simple, just simple task, or speech or therapy, but I can tell you cannabis is proving to knock all of those categories on their ass. It's
Yeah.
really, cannabis has helped in so many ways, with social, with eye contact, with helping to be more productive in the educational environment. My son went from having an emergency IUP meeting to getting a letter from the White House from Obama. If people walk into my office and it gives them hope. I said, hey, you guys haven't seen nothing yet. Your child is couldn't have been any worse than Joey. And Joey's on the lower end, or the severe and nonverbal. And I said, if your child can talk, your child can also get a letter from the White House.
Right. It's amazing, isn't it? Well, I want to know, how did you figure out that cannabis would help your son?
Well, again, I've been a legal secretary for over 15 years. My son just ended up being my biggest case. So initially, and I knew before autism, it was called brain trauma. And that's where I started my research. And that's where I found most of the scientific evidence to support damaged receptors in the brain, similar to when motorcycle riders get into accidents. Which is really funny, I remember coming home, having Joey in the car one day, and I just initially wanted him to eat, and I thought of Cheech and Chong, and I remember busting through the front door, and I said to my ex-husband, he was a stoner, so I knew that he was going to relate. I said, well, look, this is what we have to do for Joey. We have to get, and I knew nothing about cannabis. But I was very fortunate to work with some of the greats, DNA genetics with Aaron Justice and Tyler, with Echo Farms, with Lester Greenspoon, and God, you name it. I think that at that time, I was very, very fortunate to work with so many awesome people who walked me through whether it's the cultivation, the strains. Literally, I knew how to, put a divorce case together, so I was nowhere near knowing how anything in a garden worked, let alone going through strains and terpenes. And now, it's a little bit different. I'm able to help, but I was just so fortunate to be able to work with some amazing people, and such early on in the industry.
Yeah. And so what happened when you first gave him cannabis? What was the immediate reaction or near immediate reaction?
Well, I know within the first 3 months, I noticed his change in his appearance and his face. You could tell he had a lot of vitamin deficiencies. And once we implemented the whole plant, his face changed, his appearance changed, his demeanor changed. He went from no longer, trying to dart out the house and and to being open to direction, as well as his eye contact improving, social interaction with his brother and sister, and the weight gain. And one of the things that I learned very early on is how to introduce new foods for Joey. I mean, with our children, they go through these stages. It's a 3-month stage, and then they will eat the same food for 3 months and then one day change. And it's very common with children diagnosed with autism. So, what I did was, when I gave Joey the cannabis, instead of giving him whatever he wanted, I started introducing fruits, vegetables, because there was an opportune time, and that timing was just priceless. So I wanted to use it to introduce food, so when he was not on the cannabis, that he would request broccoli and request green beans. And to this day, I still teach parents how to do that.
That's very interesting with the timing of it. And, if you're trying to get someone to eat, nothing like introducing a new food when they're actually hungry.
Right. And, a lot of people don't realize, I don't give Joey cannabis every day. Joey has a particular strain that his strain is a very high THC and a low CBD. And he only gets his strain every 15 days. That's twice a month.
Wow. And so the effects seem to last for days at a time then?
Right, because, and this is also something that I teach physicians as well as families as well on, so you use CBD as a nutritional supplement. And when you introduce the THC, the children don't need the THC every single day, or they don't. So I teach them how to find a starting point, the most appropriate starting point. Every child is different, but when you find that starting point, some children may need the THC every day. Some children may need it every 2 days, every 3 days. But how to establish that starting point is what I help families with. Because you can walk into a dispensary and say, my son has all of these conditions, and then you have instructions that clearly don't make sense because they're not made for a child. And even if they are a product, it still doesn't apply to your child. The product is the same. Every child is different under this umbrella. So what I do is I teach parents and physicians how to find that starting point. The same technique that I used with Joey in 2009.
And how is Joey doing today?
Joey's he's doing well. He's diagnosed terminal, but he is the happiest palliative care patient ever. We have good days and we have bad days, but his cannabis routine has not changed. And the chapter and the phase that he's in right now, most children pass away in their late teens, and he just turned 19. So I'm happy and I'm sad, but I do know now that I'm in both palliative care and continue to speak on behalf of autism. He's opened up more doors for me, and he's opened up. And so, every family I help gives me a few more days with Joey. So it's one of the reasons why I have not stopped doing what I'm doing.
Well, you're remarkably strong, and it must be a very traumatic thing to have to go through, but you are doing so much good for others that it really puts a lot of meaning on Joey's life. And cannabis obviously has been a blessing because, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that the cannabis has actually helped with the symptoms of muscular dystrophy then?
Oh, 100%. Cannabis is a natural muscular protectant, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a deterioration of muscles. His condition has not changed in the last 3.5 years.
Wow.
So he is changing. Not only, the new patient and, with cannabis therapies and palliative care, but he's also, I'm getting a few calls from the muscular dystrophy community especially with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I had no idea that I was knocking out two birds with one stone in 2009. So I do believe that cannabis has played a very key role in my son's life extension.
Yeah, in fact, you rarely hear any news about cannabis and muscular dystrophy. I mean, I hear a lot about autism and a lot about, some of the other cerebral palsy, a lot of conditions like that, but not so much with the muscular dystrophy. I just haven't heard a lot.
I can tell you why. Well, the autism is most of the organizations are privately funded. Muscular dystrophy, not so much. You have the MDA and you have all of these large organizations that are federally funded. And so I would hope that they come around at some point. But I think a lot of the pushback has to do with how it is still federally, not able to, it's tied up in federal
prohibition.
So I think, once that is released, that title is released, then, we're going to see a lot more organizations that are willing to, step up to the plate and say, no, we think this is effective for MDA patients, or, because right now, I can walk into Joey's doctor's office and I'm sure he knows why Joey's still here, and I know Joey's still here, but it's still not proper just to state it.
Doctors often err on the side of caution, and without seeing cold hard scientific study that's acceptable by the agency that gives them their license to practice medicine.
Sure. Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, it's one of the reasons why I do spend a lot of time with physicians now. I'm doing in-service presentations for cancer centers, for, I think I just will be speaking at the autism conference in Texas in September. And I am just as conservative as most physicians. And I respect not wanting to rock the boat, but then, there's always those rebel physicians that are saying, we're going to, I love them, but the majority of physicians do not want to lose their jobs. So for me, I think it's really important to continue to be that bridge and be their first point of access into walking into a dispensary and really, connecting them with the companies, connecting them with patients, and that's what we need to help, so they can get on our side. Because right now, it is pretty scary. There's so much information out there, and have had physicians tell me there's too much information. And so for me, I've taken that and said, okay, noted.
Yeah.
Noted. Okay, so let me go back to the board, and I do have physicians that come over, medical teams that come over, and I introduce them to companies so they can, so they can ask the questions and go, empower them to empower us as patients.
Yeah, well, you must have found it encouraging to hear, albeit briefly, Attorney General Sessions say, well, there may be some medical use to marijuana.
You know what? Right now, there's an overwhelming, I know in the dispensary that I work for, our demographics are 35 and over. Those are voters.
Yeah.
So, I think, they're starting to catch on that you could be voted out.
I think so too. I mean, we saw also the Senate Majority Leader come out and advocate for hemp last week. I found astonishing because, traditionally you would think that legalizing cannabis would be a conservative issue. But traditionally over the last 30 years, it's been more pushed by the liberal side, left-leaning.
Well, I think
Conservatives.
conservatives have forgotten about pro-life. Cannabis is pro-life. I did whatever I could to keep my son alive. That's pro-life. So the conversation needs to change so they can get on board.
Yeah, and I think that it is changing because the stigma, as more and more people come out and speak about it in a respectable way, and your average person realizes that it's not just something that gets hippies high. I think that with that stigma going away, there's no place to go now but ahead with removing cannabis from Schedule 1, from eliminating all penalties, hopefully exonerating people who have in the past been convicted, sometimes for long sentences for having joints in their pocket.
Right.
I mean, there is change. It's here. I believe it's here. And those who are still advocating against it, really,
they're outnumbered.
They're not only outnumbered, but if they're in public service and are elected officials, they really are going to be out of jobs come 2020.
Yeah. The scope of things, and I mean, again, it's one of the reasons why I have medical teams come into our information and resource center in Orange County. It's one of the reasons why we have some very prominent universities contacting me to have that conversation, to have that compassionate conversation with medical directors. So, and as Joey must be, and I'm not sure if you can hear him, but he's now yelling. He's like, your interview is over, Mom. You're done. So yeah, with him, I have limited time.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true, autism mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't stop, and I don't think I will ever stop, and until I know that, families are protected, and the physicians who are willing to put everything on the line are protected as well.
Yeah, well, congratulations on all your success with this advocacy work, and education is so important. And I think that hearing people like yourself speak out on this issue is really going to help a lot of people, and especially parents who haven't yet learned about cannabis, or parents living in prohibition states are at a disadvantage, obviously, but it's important that they learn about it so that they can start to apply the pressure to their elected officials and enact change at their community level. Yeah, so I know in my heart that your work is very much appreciated by all of them and all of us. So thanks.
Well, thank Joey, because he's actually given me a reason and given me a purpose, and I probably didn't realize how strong I was until I had to go public. I remember speaking to Dr. Lester Greenspoon from Harvard, and I told him, I said, I will do this right, so this treatment option will be available to every family. And to this day, I still keep my word.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't see myself, I'm doing so many things right now. I do not see myself slowing down one bit.
It's important work. It's important work for sure.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
Well, oh man, I'm currently in talks with helping some hospitals in Puerto Rico, and that are doing cannabis therapies. I'm currently doing a lot of consults in my office and training medical teams, answering their questions, and just being the mom I was in 2009, just with a bigger army.
Yeah. Well, how can people find you when they would like to get some information from you?
They can find me. I am the educational director for From the Earth. dispensary in Orange County, California, or Santa Ana. They can reach me by email at fteoc.com. Or you can go to Meiko's blog. It's meikosblog.com. You can Google my name. I'm very accessible. I return every call and answer answer every email. So I definitely, my social networks, it's Meiko Perez for Facebook and Instagram. And I've been doing a lot of media in the last couple of weeks as well.
Good. Please share your news with us. Put that up on the website as well.
Okay. I'm scheduled to speak everywhere. And I'm speaking Jenny McCarthy and Donnie Wahlberg. They're actually doing Autism Summit together in Texas.
Wow. Okay.
So I will be leading one of their cannabis and autism panels.
Excellent.
Yeah, with everything goes together. The 420, this link, everything.
Yeah. Well, I think that sounds brilliant. And I'll look that up too and put a link to that on the website here.
And every call is a private consult. I do ask the parent sign a confidentiality agreement. So it takes the trend out of the conversation, because when you get on the phone, I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. Let's get to work.
Well, and I'm sure that puts some parents at ease too, if they're afraid of talking about this in states that don't allow it.
Yeah, they do. And I have spent so many hours in family law court listening to opposing counsel saying, well, we have a copy of what they posted on Facebook. And so even on my blog, I talk about there's no secret, private, anything on social media. And if you're going through a horrible divorce, please don't go on social media talking about cannabis.
Right. Or if Child Protective Services.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And so what happens is when they contact me, they realize that. And I have had a lot of parents just say, thank you for closing this loop.
Right.
So it's really important until further federal laws are passed that at least special needs children, families, really remain to be discreet.
Right. So what is the final takeaway that you would like people to know, either parents with children who are disabled who could benefit from cannabis, or the skeptical among us that still are not convinced?
Life extension. Cannabis has given my family life. And the only way that I can repay back the joy and happiness and even the crazy days where I'm like, are you kidding me? I remember how far I've come. So I, as a parent, speaking to other parents, you don't have the option to give up. So if your first try with cannabis is not a success, I guarantee you when you call me, your second try will be.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. That's very good to know. So thank you. Thank you for sharing all of this. And I will put all of that up on our website as well when we archive the episode, so people can find you, once again. And I have a lot of gratitude for hearing stories like this. So if you'd like to learn more about Meiko Perez, her journey with her son, Joey, and the work that she's doing, and I will put information on the website about all of that so that you can feel free to reach out to her. And also be sure to check out 420 TV.
Yeah.
Her episode is on medical miracles, the title of the show, and the stories are compelling, and you can find Meiko's story there.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, I so appreciate you coming on today. So thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure for sure. So, it is time to bring yet another show to the close. Once again, I'd like to personally thank my guest, Meiko Perez, for her insights and knowledge that she's shared with us today. If you'd like to learn more about the work that she's doing, please do visit us online at thecannabisreporter.com and click podcast to find today's episode. I will post her bio along with information about her organizations and a link to her websites, all of the information that you need to reach her. We have a lot of others to thank. First, I would like to express our gratitude for our radio sponsors, Alpine Miracle, HealthTerra, and Compassionate Certification Centers. We certainly couldn't be doing this without you. I'd also like to thank Eric Goodall for our beautiful theme song, Evergreen, our engineers at DigiLabs for making us shine, and our program directors at XRQK Radio Network and Society Bites Radio for distributing our show. And last but not least, thank you to all of you for listening around the nation. I'm your host, Snowden Bishop, inviting you to join me again next week, same time, same place, for a compelling interview with filmmaker Wendy Borman and the one and only Melissa Etheridge, right here on the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show. Until we meet again, be safe, stay informed, share what you've learned, and make it a great day.
Evergreen is calling. Evergreen is calling. Evergreen is calling.
Now that doctors and patients have discovered the many benefits of hemp-derived CBD, Alpine Miracle's nano-emulsion CBD formula is one of the most bioavailable on the market today. It's 100% THC-free, so you can order it online anywhere in the U.S. Order yours today at alpinemiracle.com. Scientists are just beginning to understand its essential role in maintaining optimal health. Get yours today. Use the code REPORTER and receive 10% off. Don't wait. Get it now at alpinemiracle.com.
You're busy, running around from work to kids to evening events. Healthcare shouldn't be adding to your daily running around. Simplify your healthcare with HealthTerra. For only $15 per month per individual or $18 per month per family with up to 9 kids, by the way, you can eliminate doctor office visits with 24/7 access to doctors via phone, video, or the mobile app. Not only do you get prescriptions filled over the phone, but save up to 85% on those prescriptions. This is a supplemental plan and not insurance. Healthcare made easy. HealthTerra.com.